Burn the bridge. I don't know where I learned this expression. In my native language, Portuguese, we don't have familiarity with it, and it's not something you would say when you want to say full commitment. But that's one idea when learning a language, especially if you follow some internet polyglots. They believe in burning all bridges when it comes to learning a language. So they travel to the country where the language is spoken. They don't have any support of their native language in that country. And they say that it's the best method to learn a foreign language. But is it really? Is total immersion the best way to learn a language? Hmm. Well, it's a good way, but perhaps it's not the best for you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. First, just to make sure that we are on the same page, when you have total immersion, it means that you learn a language surrounding yourself completely with the target language. And it usually includes living in the country where it's spoken, especially if you live in a country like mine. It's a country in which only one language is widely spoken. And we do have different languages, but they are so scattered around the country that you will not find enough people to say, well, I can have immersion here. I can immerse myself in the language here. So, language immersion usually includes traveling to the country where the language is spoken and spending a few months there or a few weeks there. The good thing about this method is that it helps you have constant exposure. And I can't stress the importance of exposure enough. You really have to expose yourself to, it sounds weird, right? You have to have some language exposure most of the time and daily. You want to listen to the words, you want to hear sounds, you want to watch TV, you want to read books and signs and everything in your target language for as long as you can and as often as you can. And it's also beneficial because if you're learning a living language, unlike Latin and ancient Greek, you will learn a language as it's actually used by native speakers. You will hear people saying things on the streets, and then you'll learn how to express yourself that same way. Also, if you're learning a language from a country where the culture is so different from your own, it does help getting attuned to their culture. And language is not only language, remember that. It's culture, it's habits, it's how people behave. If you're learning Portuguese, that is a highly context dependent language. And you are from, let's say, Germany, because that's most commonly the kind of conflict we have. My German friends and students usually are straightforward. They say what they mean and they don't mince words. And that's how they say, okay, that's the most efficient way to communicate. But that's not how you would do that in Brazil. If you do that in Brazil, you will be thought of as rude and avoided. That's very good if you're learning Brazilian Portuguese. If you travel to Brazil, that's a very good thing because you'll see how people behave here. And it's also useful when you have this kind of immersion because you're forced to use the language most of the time. If you come to Brazil, you have to learn Brazilian Portuguese or even European Portuguese, but it has to be some kind of Portuguese so that you can communicate with people because otherwise you'll be isolated among lots of people. But the question is, although total immersion has so many benefits, can you get those benefits only by having total immersion? Well, I will give you the answer in a moment. But right now, I would like to pull the curtain and show you some of the drawbacks of doing that. First, traveling to another country, that's kind of expensive. You will incur in some expenses that are foreseen and some unforeseen expenses as well. So you have to prepare, you have to budget above what you expect to spend. So that may not be the best thing for many of us who need to keep a job and make ends meet and pay bills and pay out a mortgage or something like that. So maybe not the best thing. It can also be stressful, terribly stressful. Why? Well, if you are at a lower level of proficiency in your target language, it can be overwhelming, taxing mentally, and you will feel tired more quickly. I am sure you can have that as well if you're learning the language in your native country, not in a foreign country. And this also happens when you're learning a foreign language somewhere else. If you come to Brazil and you don't speak Portuguese, and you are among a group of friends who speak only Portuguese, and then you want to talk to them, you may say something, they will say something back, and it will take you a while to answer. And this time that takes you for you to answer is time that your brain is working at maximum capacity. It's like trying to come up with an answer, and it does tire us out. It's very intensive, so you will feel more like that if you are at lower levels of proficiency and if you travel to the country in which your target language is spoken. And because there is no structure, usually, right, if you're not learning from a textbook or if you don't enroll in a course, well, you might miss important grammar points and some mistakes might solidify, and it's very hard to get rid of them once they settle in. And for beginners, as I said, that's terrible. If I were a beginner, I wouldn't want to travel to another country to learn the language. I would want to travel to another country to be a tourist, yes, but not to learn a language. For example, now I can speak some somewhat decent Chinese. But when I was first learning, oh no, I would never go to China. Now I am happy to go if I can, but in the past, never. And also, if you are deciding right now to learn your first foreign language and then you want to go all in, you might have some cultural shock. More than one friend of mine went to Korea, South Korea, and they had a shock when real culture was not what they saw in the Netflix series that they watched. And just a parenthesis here, I have to say, man, why do people do that? They watch something and they say, oh, I want to live in that country. They go to that country and they find out that, well, maybe the series was just one exaggerated aspect of the society or one non-existing aspect of society. And usually it happens to younger people, like less experienced people. But, okay, I got a little bit sidetracked by this topic, but now I'm back to the main topic here. And it's not always the best to do this total immersion because, one, not everyone thrives in a sink or swim environment. Some learners need some gradual exposure to the language. They need to be more, they need some hand holding, and there is no weakness in that. I need lots of hand holding in Russian, for example. And also, there is a language level mismatch. I am repeating that a lot because if you are a beginner, don't do that. You are not going to enjoy, you are not going to like it, and it will probably cause you some trauma that you will have to get rid of if you want to continue learning languages. And it can be a stressful and anxiety-inducing experience. So it can hinder your language learning goals if you do that sometimes. So, is it necessary that you go to the country in which the language is spoken? No, you don't really need to do that. You can do a different approach. If you want more exposure to the language, do some gradual immersion. Start with immersive activities for short periods. For example, Begin with 30 minutes of Spanish radio daily, and then 45 minutes, and then 50 minutes, and then 1 hour. And then when you're comfortable and you have the time for it, go with 2 hours. So that's immersion. And also, you can have structured immersion programs. I haven't really checked those anymore because I don't learn languages in other countries. I learned all my languages here in Brazil. But I know there are companies who work specifically with language immersion programs. They will help you get settled in. They will find accommodations, as we say in Portuguese, or they will find some place for you to stay. They will get you food. They will organize tours. So get a company to help you. By the way, here in Brazil, although I teach languages, I don't do that kind of immersion. But here in my city, there is a school that is also a travel agency, and they get students from everywhere in the world. The students come here. They have group activities around the city, around the town, and it's very interesting. Some of my students did that in the past, and they said very good things about it. So it's worth looking for this kind of program. You can also have some virtual immersion. You can do what I did in the past and listen to recordings and watch movies, and you do everything with your computer. You can change your phone language settings. You can watch YouTube videos. You can join language exchange apps in your target language. And you can also do a more balanced approach. You can take Italian classes if you're learning Italian, for example, while you attend Italian conversation meetups and watch Italian films. That's the same if you go to Italy, for example, to learn Italian. You do these activities in addition to living in the place where you are, okay? So if you want to do with total immersion, it's really good for you. And I will always say, do whatever you find best for you. But you have to be realistic about it. You can have to think, am I at the right level to enjoy it, to benefit from it? And you also have to think realistically about the goals. Okay, I'm going to spend 1 month in Vietnam, and I will speak Vietnamese fluently. Don't do that. Even one of those polyglots that I saw online, that one who says fluent in 3 months, which is a nice guy. I don't believe that you can learn all languages in 3 months, but he has very specific definitions for fluency and what 3 months are. But the thing is, you have to be realistic. Some languages will take longer. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes things can go in a different way. And you may even give up on language learning. So 1 month may be not enough for you to achieve fluency in Vietnamese. And you have to be willing to take breaks. Okay, you're going to spend 1 year in your country in which your target language is spoken. And then you will learn all the time. Don't do that. You'll feel tired and you'll burn out and you will not want to come back to it. So allow yourself time to process and reflect on what you're learning. Give yourself a break sometimes. And seek support. There is strength in asking for help. This is something that I have to repeat because I myself don't look for help when I need sometimes. So I have to remember there is strength in looking for help. There's weakness in not looking for help. Because you'll feel alone, you will go down faster. That's what will happen. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution. If you have the money for it, the time for it, and you are realistic about it, go for it. If not, maybe another approach will be better for you. So, that's it for today. And if you've had some experience with total immersion, I would like to hear from you. You can send me an email, or you can check the blog post that accompanies this podcast episode as well.